Hello everybody, this is Mr. McNair, and this is going to be a brief lesson on 4.2 using intercepts. Alright, first of all, let's just talk about real quick what an x-intercept and y-intercept are. An x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis, so x-axis, that's the x-axis. So in this problem, the x-intercept would be this point right here. So that's the point -5 for the x, 0 for the y. And then the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. So this is the y-axis. And in this graph, it would be this point right here, which will be the point 0 for the x and +1 for the y. Now, you should recognize that every x-intercept will always have 0 for the y, and every y-intercept will always have 0 for the x. Okay? Alright, let's look at the second one here. The x-intercept, here, it's our x-axis. It crosses the x-axis at this point, which there is 2, 0. And then our y-intercept crosses the y-axis right here at -4. So that point is the point 0, -4. And once again, that we see that every x-intercept should have 0 for the y, and every y-intercept should have 0 for the x. All right, good. Here, find the x-intercept and y-intercept of the graph of the equation. Now, there's a couple ways that you can do this. When you're finding the x-intercept, 2x minus 4y equals 4. The way that I showed you guys in class was to either set the y equal to 0, and then solve. So -4 times 0, well, that's just 0, so that just kind of cancels out. So you get 2x equals 4. Then divide by 2 on both sides, you would get x equals 2. So that gives us a ordered pair of 2, 0 for the x-intercept. Or you can do that method that I told you called the cover-up method. Now, the cover-up method, all you're going to do is when you're trying to find the x-intercept, you're going to cover up the y value and anything that's attached to that y through multiplication. So now we can just say, okay, well, what number can I multiply 2 by to get 4? Well, 2 times 2 gives you 4. So we know that x is 2. So therefore, this has an ordered pair of 2, 0 for the x-intercept. Then we can do the same thing for the y-intercept. Again, we start off with 2x minus 4y equals 4. If we use our cover-up method, that means we're going to cover up the y value. Whoops. Let's just make a new block here. We're going to cover up the x value to find y. Okay, so that leaves us with -4 times y equals 4. So -4 times what will give us 4? Well, if you don't know, you could always still divide both sides by -4, and you'll see that y equals -1. So the ordered pair, that's our y-intercept, is 0 for the x and -1 for the y. Okay, so those are our x and y-intercepts. This one is a little different because it's not in standard form. So what I would do with this one first is put it in standard form. I would move this 2y over. In fact, you can move the 2y over and the 3x over at the same time if you wanted to. I won't do that right now because I don't want to confuse anybody. So we would have 2y plus 5x equals, those cancel out, -3x and a +16. And then we'll go ahead and move that x over. So let's add 3x to both sides to move that to the same side. Because remember, in standard form, x and y are on the same side. And let me do that over again. Put that 3x in the right spot. Okay, there we go. So we have 2y plus 8x equals +16. And there we go. We have our standard form. Typically in standard form, you have the x value first. It really doesn't matter, but if you would like to write the x value first, you can. You can switch those around and make it 8x plus 2y equals 16 if you wanted to. Doesn't matter. All right, now let's go ahead and find our x-intercept. We'll go ahead and use the cover-up method. So when you're finding the x-intercept, you cover up the y. So 8 times what gives you 16. Well, 8 times 2 is 16. So that means the x-intercept is 2, 0. And then cover up the cover up the x to find the y-intercept. That's a positive 2. So 2 times what gives you 16? Well, 2 times 8 gives you 16. So the y-intercept is 0, 8. And there we go. We have our x-intercept and y-intercept. All right. Now this one says graph using the intercepts. So let's find our x-intercept first. So whatever you cover up, in essence, it really becomes 0. So if I'm finding the x-intercept, what I do is I cover up the y. So that part becomes 0. So this is 0 equals 2x plus 4. So to solve for x, we will subtract 4 from both sides. You get negative 4 equals 2x. We can divide by 2 on both sides. So we get negative 2 equals x. So since we're talking about the x-intercept, that means that's the ordered pair, negative 2 for x, 0 for y. Because once again, every x-intercept has a 0 for the y. So that's this point right here, negative 2, 0. Then we can do that same thing for the y. To find the y-intercept, we cover up the x value. So that one kind of works out pretty simply because now we're just left with y equals positive 4. So we know that y equals 4. And that means, once again, because every y-intercept has 0 for the x, so that's 0, 4 as our y-intercept. So that's the point 0, 4 here. And you only need 2 points to make a line. So now we can go ahead and just connect the dots. All right, let me get my line a little bit straighter there. Okay, and we're going to put arrows at the end simply because a line goes on and on forever in both directions. And there we go. Cool. Let's try this one. Trish can run the 200-meter dash in 25 seconds. The function f of x equals 200 minus 8x gives the distance remaining to be run after x seconds. Graph this function and find the intercepts. What does each intercept represent? Now, here's the function that we're talking about. Now this problem is not really that different from problems that we've had in the past from this lesson. The only thing that we see differently is that we have this f of x there. Alright, but we know that f of x is the same thing as y. So this is the same thing as y equals 200 minus 8x. If I was to put that in standard form, which you don't have to, but sometimes it's a little easier to work with. If you put that in standard form, you could just add 8x to both sides. You get 8x plus y equals 200. Those canceled out. Now we can find the x-intercept and the y-intercept relatively easily, and you don't have that f of x in there. So to find our x-intercept, we cover up the y. So we have 8x equals 200. So if I was to solve that, 8x equals 200. We would just divide by 8 on both sides, and you see that x equals 25. So that's the ordered pair 25, 0. And then we could do that same thing for the y. Cover up the x, and we automatically see that the y is 200. So we get y equals 200. So that's the ordered pair 0, 200. Now this one does say graph the function. So I'm just going to go to this next slide here, and I've already pretty much prepared my graph. So we had a y-intercept of 0, 200, and the x-intercept of 25, 0. So those are those points there. And now we just need to connect the dots. So we'll connect this to this. Now, we don't put arrows on this graph simply because on our x-axis we're dealing with time. So if we were to put an arrow this way, we'd be getting into negative time, and we're not dealing with negative time. Okay? And the same thing down here. We're not dealing with negative distances, so we wouldn't have an arrow that way. That wouldn't make sense. Okay? So what does our intercepts represent? Well, this is 0, 200. So that means at time 0, that we still have 200 meters left to go in our race. Okay? And over here, That's the order pair 25, 0, which means that at 25 seconds, we have 0 meters left to go. So this is our position, how long it took us at the end of the race. The 200 meters took us 25 seconds. All right, and there we go. We've graphed that function, and we've explained what our intercepts mean. All right, I hope this lesson has been useful to you. Have a great day.